Back here at home, we are one step closer to November's midterm elections after the last major primary night of the season. Former Florida Governor Charlie Crist won the Democratic nomination to take on Governor Ron DeSantis, and New York Congressman Jerry Nadler beat longtime ally Carolyn Maloney after redistricting pit those two incumbents against one another. Congressional correspondent Rachel Scott has the latest. Hi, Rachel.
Diane, it was the last big primary night before the midterm elections, and one of the most watched races of the night was right here in New York City. This was a rare and bitter battle over Manhattan between two of the most powerful Democrats in the House, Carolyn Maloney and Jerry Nadler. The congressional maps were redrawn. It ended up forcing these two longtime allies to run against each other. Nadler scored the victory, so after 30 years, Maloney's career on Capitol Hill has come to an end for now. In Hudson Valley, Democrats were able to hang on to a key House seat. Pat Ryan defying the polls, winning his race in a key swing district. He made abortion rights a central focus of his campaign. This was a big test for Democrats who are hoping that becomes a driving issue to mobilize voters in November. Want to turn now to Florida. The big question of the night, who will take on Florida Governor Ron DeSantis? Congressman Charlie Crist won the Democratic nomination for governor. He was actually already had the job. He was elected governor of Florida back in 2006. Back then, he was a Republican. Now he is a Democrat. And Florida could send one of the first members of Generation Z to Congress. Gun control activist Maxwell Frost won his primary in a very heavily Democratic district. He beat out 9 challengers. He just turned 25 this year. He is barely passing the age requirement to run for Congress, Diane.
All right, Rachel Scott, we appreciate it. As always, thank you. And I want to bring in White House correspondent Mary Alice Parks for more on this. Mary Alice, in New York, Democrat Pat Ryan defeated Republican Mark Molinaro in this special election for the House seat in Hudson Valley swing district. This is one of the few races during this primary season that are actually cross-party, as opposed to being competing for the Democrat or Republican seat. This was a Democrat versus a Republican. So how significant is this win for the Democratic Party?
Yeah, this was a special election, a general election, so we actually got to see what November might look like. And I think that Democrats see this as a really big win, even though, of course, this is only a seat that he will hold for 3 months. He will have to run all over again. But they see this as a win in changing the narrative. Remember where Democrats were just a few months ago, where Republicans were. Republicans were predicting a red wave kind of season. They were predicting wins all across the country, partly because the party out of power historically picks up tons of seats in Congress, but also because gas prices were at record highs, inflation at record highs, the president's approval rating at record lows. And so we heard Republicans with so much confidence going into the summer. And Democrats have really, in the last few weeks, tried to change the tone and all of a sudden have a lot more skip in their step. They say that running on issues like Pat Ryan did, running on issues like abortion access, like reproductive health care, like some of these big legislative wins that Democrats have secured in Congress, is actually really changing the narrative, and that Democrats might be able to hold on a lot better than was previously predicted, Diane.
All right. Now, Mary Alice, President Biden is expected to make an announcement about his student loan forgiveness plan as soon as today. And sources say he could forgive up to $10,000 in loans for people who make $125,000 a year or less. So what more can you tell us about what you're expecting from this announcement, and what impact is this expected to have?
Yeah, Diane, it could have a major impact for millions of Americans. Remember, about a third of borrowers in this country have less than $10,000 in debt. And often it is those borrowers that have a smaller amount of debt who have the hardest time paying back that debt because they don't have high wages, or perhaps they didn't exactly even finish graduating or go on to get further degrees. So I think that for those millions of Americans, it will make a really big difference. We know that about another 20% of borrowers would see their debt slashed in half. So this has the potential to be really meaningful for people. Democrats in favor of this have long argued that it's smart economics. It helps people go on to be able to take on different kinds of debt, buy cars, buy homes down the road. We know that so many people that are struggling with student debt struggle to make those kinds of purchases down the road.
So politically, how does this play out? How are Democrats and Republicans responding to this?
Yeah, hard to know. Probably a little bit of a mixed bag. I think you're going to see some Republicans continue to make this argument that this seems like giving money away, that it seems like a free handout. Why cancel this kind of debt and not other debt? And you're going to see Democrats, especially progressive Democrats, say this is too little. They wanted more. They were promised more. They think that more is necessary with the rising cost of tuition and high interest rates that so many student loan borrowers are paying. You know, I think that it's interesting that cap, if that's actually what we see from this White House today, we don't know. They haven't put out a lot of the details yet. But if they do, in fact, put out that cap where it would only apply to people making under $125,000 a year, that starts to get at some of those Republican arguments. You know, Republicans have long said, why should a doctor or a lawyer have their debt sort of canceled? And I think that that's the White House trying to slash that argument a little bit.
All right, Mary Alice Parks, we appreciate it. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.